want me to record this. Okay. So we're going to learn, if you take the piece of paper in your hand, and if you could chew and read at the same time.
Where is the paper, Mindy?
I don't know, maybe you can find it.
There
may be one on the table, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5.
Well, this one's smaller. Is that the same thing?
Either one. Either one. You can read smaller letters better?
No, it's easier to file.
Okay, it's upside down.
I'll keep it in the book.
Okay. So anyway, I wanted, for most of you probably know this anyway, this is a page from the Gemara. And just, if I'm saying something which is obvious, forgive me, but what is the Gemara? We've all heard the word Mishnah, we've heard the word Gemara, we've heard the word Shas, we've heard the word Talmud, and let's. You already have a question?
No, I was going to offer an answer.
Oh, okay.
He was going to ask what Gemara means.
So, okay. Rough crowd. Anyway, so here it is. We know we have the Torah, the written Torah, and we also have the oral Torah. First word in the Torah is Bereshis. Right. It's Bet, Rashis. There are 2 beginnings. One for the written Torah and one for the oral Torah. After the Torah was given, obviously from the Torah itself you can't figure out 99% of our mitzvahs, you couldn't figure it out. So there came rabbis and they had commentary on the Torah, and they specifically Rabbi Yehuda Hanossi, Rabbi Yehuda the Prince, organized the Mishnah. And the plural of that, we've heard of the word Mishnayos. Now, after the Mishnah, if any one of us will pick up a copy of a Mishnah, and even in English, you wouldn't really understand it. You need commentary on the Mishnah itself. And that commentary on the Mishnah is called the Gemara. So the Gemara explained the Mishnah, which explained the Torah. Now, the Gemara itself was in different parts of the world. They did the Gemara. They did it in Israel. They did it in Bavel, in Babylonian. Actually, they first did it in Israel, and that Gemara, which Amen. And that Gemara that they did in Israel is called Talmud Yerushalmi. Most of us have never learned Talmud Yerushalmi, and with the exception of a few yeshivos, few Jewish schools, they don't learn Talmud Yerushalmi. We all learn Talmud Bavli. Talmud, the word Talmud, you know what Talmud means? But what does it encompass? Talmud is the total of Mishnah and Gemara together. That's called the Talmud. And there are 63, I believe, tractates, okay, which is also called in Hebrew Masechta, and today we have a page from the second tractate of the 63. All the tractates together is called what? Shas. Okay, that's why we've had Siyum HaShas. Actually, Shas is 2 letters, a Shin and a Samach, which stands for Shishei Sidrei, the 6 orders of the Mishnah. But we use it loosely to mean all the Mishnah and all the Gemara and all the Talmud and everything together is called Shas. And the first one, what's the first tractate? Brachot. And the second one is Shabbos. And we have page 21, side B. A page in Hebrew is called a daf, and side 1 is called Amud Aleph, and side 2 is called Amud Beis. And today we have in front of us number 21, side B. And if you'll notice, on top there's a number 42, because in English, we assign separate numbers for side A and side B, so this would wind up being the 42nd side, but it's really the 21st page, side B. And we're learning this today because it mentions Chanukah. Now, if you look at the page, I don't know if some of you may have never seen a page Gemara, and there's all kinds of things going on. So let me explain to you what's on this page. First of all, before I say anything, in a regular Gemara, there is no punctuation. I was able to get a copy of something which is punctuated, so it's easier for us to read. But one of the most difficult things in learning Gemara is that there is no punctuation. Just like when we take out the Torah, there is no punctuation. So the Balkorah, the reader of the Torah, has to pretty much know these things by heart. In the Gemara, it's not as difficult, but I have here, it's punctuated. Now, in the center, in the largest letters, is the Gemara. Now, on the right side, let me start with the left side. On the left side is the master commentator on the entire Torah, as well as 90% of the Shas. And that is none other than Rashi. Okay, so he's on the left side. On the right side, we have a group of his grandchildren who many times disagreed with Grandpa, and they have their own interpretation, and that's on the right side. Sometimes they're in direct opposite spectrum. Sometimes they explain Grandpa, and sometimes they question him, and they try to come up with a reason. Okay, now, that's on the side of it. Now, if you go more further to the side, let's start with the right side. On the right side, all the way on top, you see the words Ayin Mishpat Ner Mitzvah. Okay? And underneath that, there is about half a dozen or so paragraphs. This section is where it points out how the Rambam, Maimonides, ruled on all the things that are going on in the Gemara. If in the Gemara itself you'll see small letters of the alphabet in block letters, starting with 3 lines from the top. Third word has a small aleph in front of it, and you look to the side, and it tells you where exactly in Maimonides he talks about it and what his ruling is on that. Now, we don't necessarily rule the way the Rambam rules all the time, but it's a good start. So that's the Rambam. Underneath the Rambam, there's a little space. In approximately in the 10th or 11th century, there was a rabbi called Rabbeinu Hananel, and he basically takes the Gemara very concisely, and he reiterates pretty much everything in the Gemara, but very precisely. Sometimes he adds his own comments. Okay, now, let's look to the left. On the top, there's a heading called Masoris Hashas. Here in this column, all the way till the line, 3/4 of the way down to the page, here is where it gives you where in the Gemara it talks about. Like as we're learning the Gemara, it says, the rabbis learned, or Reb Lezer said, or it quotes rabbis and everything, but where did those people say those things? So you look on the left, Masoros Hashas, and it tells you exactly where that is said. Okay? Now, there's something also, if the Gemara brings down something from the Torah itself, which does not happen on this page, on the side between the Gemara and Rashi, it gives you where in the Torah, Deuteronomy, Genesis, wherever it is, it'll tell you where it is. If it quotes something from Tanakh, either the prophets or Torah. Okay, now, again on the left side, underneath the line, there is Hagoos Hagra, which we know the Gra. Who's the Gra? The Vilna Gaon. here are his remarks or changes. He'll sometimes change a word here or there, and sometimes those changes are dramatic. It changes the whole complexion of what we just learned, and it's so important that the people who made the Shas hundreds and hundreds of years ago decided that it was worthwhile to put in what the Vilna Gaon had to say. Of course, there are literally tens of thousands of other commentaries. Well, maybe I'm going a little crazy, but certainly many thousands have commented on this, and there have been commentary on that commentary, and so on, and there's no end. Okay, now we're going to start learning a little Gemara, and approximately 18 lines from the top.
There's a question, this little parenthesis between the grandchildren and the Gemara, is that what you were talking about, the where you can find it in the Torah?
No. What those, like you'll see about a little more than halfway down, you see the first one? Yeah. Okay. In the grandchildren, what's called Tosfos, I'm not sure if I used that word, that's called Tosfos. Tosfos, when he says, sometimes he brings down that, what?
What they bring down.
Okay. When Tosfos brings down something, sometimes it'll say, we learned above or we learned below. He uses the word above or below. And here on the side, it'll tell you exactly on what page. Okay, this was done much later on, just to save time, to start going through. It's always in the same tractate. But it'll say, we learned above so-and-so, so instead of going through, this is the 21st page, instead of going through 20 pages, it'll tell you exactly where, and the same thing, either above or below. Okay, now let's go 18 lines from the top, and after the two dots, anybody still needs time to find it? Okay.
That word?
No, one line at the top of that. There are two dots. There are two dots.
Right,
okay?
Yeah.
Now, you'll notice that right away there is an abbreviated word, Tuf Resh. Okay? With apostrophe. Now, all the ways in the bottom of the page, there are a lot of abbreviations which are used in the Gemara, and the more common ones, or the ones that apply to this page, are written down on the bottom. And we'll come across a few of them. So instead of, I guess to save space, if it would say just a bet and a hey, that stands for Bet Hillel. So it'll just give you those two. Okay? Now, the letters Tov Resh stand for Tanu Rabbanan. The rabbis learned. This is common, it's probably 5,000 times. Yeah, it's probably 5,000 times in Shas. Ezra, I'm sure he knows the exact count. But, you know. Anyway, it says, Tonrab, the rabbis learned, Mitzvah's Chanukah, the mitzvah of Chanukah, Ner, Ish, Ubeso. The original mitzvah is just one candle per person, and that candle covers the whole household, the bare minimum. Okay? Now, then it moves on, V'mahadrin, those that want to beautify the mitzvah a little bit, Mahadrin. We know that word Mahadrin maybe from food products, Mahadrin, but it means to beautify. V'mahadrin, those that want to beautify it, Ner l'chol echad ve'echad. They light a candle for each person in the household. Now it goes one more step. V'mahadrin mina mahadrin. Those that want to even go one step more, what did they do? The original one was just one candle per house. The next one is one candle for each person that lives in the house. But the mahadrim and mahadrin, there's a dispute. Bet Shin stands for Beit Shammai. We all heard of Shammai and Hillel. They were always arguing. They always disagreed, except for 6 times in the entire Shas, we always rule like Bet Hillel, and that's going to exactly flip over when Mashiach comes, except for 6 times we will always learn rule like Bet Shammai. But right now, it says Beis Shammai Omrim. The Beis Shammai says, what do the Mahadrim and Menahadrim do? Those that want to go all out, they say Yom Rishon, the first day Madlik Shmona, the first day we light 8 candles. Mikan ve'elach, from then on, Poches v'holech. From then on, you diminish 1. First, as we know, first day 8, then 7, then 6, then 5, then 4, and we go down. That's a verse. However, Ubet Hillel Omrim, the Bet Hillel says, Yom Rishon Madlik Achaz, the first day you light 1. Mikan ve'elach, from then on, Mosiv v'holech. And from then on, you add 1 each night, like we do. The first night 1, second night 2, and so on and so forth. Okay. Omar Ula. Ula says, Ula was the name of a rabbi. Plige bo, they're arguing. Trei Amaror, 3 rabbis, b'Marova. 3 rabbis in Marova. Marova was in Babylonia. No, wait a second, maybe not, I'm not sure. But in this town, Marova, there are 2 people that are arguing. One of them is Reb Yosei bar Ovin, and the next one is Reb Yosei bar Zvida. Those 2 were arguing. Chad Omar, one of those 2 said, Tama de Beis Shammai, the reason why Beis Shammai says that we start with 8 and we go backwards is because it's Keneged Yomin Anachnosen. Because he says we put down, we light it according to how many days are still going to be. So the first day there is 8 days. The next day there are only 7 more days left. And that's why the candles indicate how many days are still left to Hanukkah. And the Tam of the Beis Hillel and the reasoning of the Beis Hillel is Keneged Yomin Hayotzim. The Beis Hillel's reason is how many have already departed? How many days have already left? So the first day 1 is left, and the second day 2 have already left, and so on and so forth. Okay, now I want to skip, because I'm sure nobody wants to sit here all night. We're going to skip until 3 lines to the top of where the lines become wide. And there's 2 dots over there also, 3 lines above the wide lines. And it starts with the word my. Does everybody have it? You keep going up. Jay, move your finger up.
Up there?
Up 2 more lines.
Oh, over here, ma.
My, okay? 3 lines above the wide lines. Okay.
Ma.
When you go to any shiur in the world, they use that place. They'll say it's 3 lines from where it becomes narrow, 2 lines where it becomes wide. That's an indication.
So isn't it say Mahalal?
Chanukah.
So what is Chanukah? That's what does it say? What is
Third line.
wide?
The 3rd line on top of the wide lines.
Okay, that's the wide line.
Not the super wide line.
Not the super wide line.
Oh, not the super wide
Yeah,
line.
there's a
yeah,
super wide
yeah.
line, and there's a...
Okay. I stand corrected. Okay. Now the Gemara asked, my Chanukah. What is Chanukah? Now, here is the question that everybody should be asking. The Gemara says, what is Chanukah? Isn't this a little too late to ask that question? We didn't learn it, but the last few pages it talks about Chanukah. Why are you asking now, why is Chanukah?
What is it?
Everybody understand the question?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in order to answer this, you have to have learned the first page of Talmud in Shas. The first Masechta, as Benny said, is Brachos. The first Mishnah talks about when is the time to read Krishma. We're required to read Krishma twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. And the Gemara and the Mishnah asks, when is the time? When is it called evening that you can start reading the Kriya Shema? Okay? And the question the Gemara asks over there is the same thing. Why are you talking about Krishma? How do we even know we have to read Krishma? Why are you giving me the rules when you haven't even established that there is this obligation of reading Krishma? So the Gemara answers over there, I don't have to establish that. That's in the Torah. So the Torah already told us, Shema Yisrael, b'shavtuch gmecha, when you lay down, when you get up, it says over there already that you have to read. So that's why we don't have to give you that rule. It's in the Torah already. And the only thing we need to do is explain to you when is the window for reading the Krishma. And with that in mind, we have to realize that everything that ever was, is, and will be is already in the Torah. And therefore, this question of my Chanukah is not really asking, what is Chanukah? The question is, what particular miracle are we celebrating on Chanukah? We know what Chanukah is. It's in the Torah, because the original Chanukah means the renewal. We've all maybe heard of the expression Chanukah Sabayis. The tabernacle, the Mishkan, the Beis Hamikdash, the temple was the grand opening and renewed on the 25th day of Kislev. We just want to know what is the miracle and what are some of the laws that we haven't learned yet about Chanukah. So we're going to look at inside. My Chanukah, what is Chanukah? What is this Chanukah? And the question continues, a long run-on sentence. What is this Chanukah, the Tonu Rabbanon, that the rabbis learned that B'Kov Hei B'Kislev, that on the 25th day of Kislev, Yomei the Chanukah Temonya Inun, that there are 8 days of Chanukah, and we learned, still continues, the lo lemispat behom, that we shouldn't eulogize anybody in those days, the lo lisanos behom, and not to fast in those days. So what has exactly happened in these 8 days that we have these rules, and we're not to mourn, that we have to celebrate the joys? And now the Gemara answers the question. You know what Chanukah is? Because shekeshenichnasu, now it's the first of the preliminary wide lines. Shekeshenichnasu yivonim lahechel, when the Greeks went into the temple, timu kol hashmanim shebehechel, they defiled, they made tameh all the oils in the temple. And then what happened? Ukshegavra malchus beis Chashmano, when the house of Chashmano became very strong, the nitzchum, and they were victorious, and they overcame the Greeks, they overcame the evil people. Batku, they searched, v'lo matzu, and they did not find ela pach echad shel shemen. They only found one jug of oil. And what was special about this oil? Shahaya munach. It was laying there, and it had b'chosomo shel Kohen Gadol. It had the seal of the Kohen. It was still sealed. It wasn't broken, and therefore we know that that was not defiled. Now, how does oil become defiled? How does anything become defiled?
Touch.
If you touch it. If a person who is not clean touches a food object or any other object, it becomes defiled. But this person is defiled. Why did this person become defiled? Because he was among and possibly touched or in the same room as a corpse. And since this was war, and everybody was exposed to corpses, everybody was defiled, and certainly all the Greeks, and they went around and they defiled and they touched everything, but luckily they found one jug of oil that still had the seal, was never opened up, and it wasn't defiled. However, v'lo hoyabo, and it was not inside, ela lahadlik, only to kindle yom echad, only for 1 day. However, nasa bones, a miracle happened. V'hidliku mimenu, and they were able to light from it shmona yomim, 8 nights. Now, when was the first Hanukkah? It wasn't that year.
The first year that
It was the second year. Because that first year, they didn't know how long it was going to last.
Yeah.
They didn't start celebrating it. Oh, when it lasted 8 days, and what happened at the end of 8 days? It took 8 days to make fresh oil. So now, next year, Lashona Acheres, fourth line in the center, Lashona Acheres, 1 year from then, Kavuam, they set Va'asom, and they made Yomim Tovim, that these days should be good and happy days. And what do? B'Hallel, we do Hallel, V'Hodor, and we praise. And that's how Hanukkah came about. Of course, there's the very famous question, why should it be 8 days? It should only be 7 days. And Rabbi Ever gave a few of those answers, and I gave a few of those answers. And I'm not going to give any more tonight. I'm going to finish with this. But there are hundreds of answers, and the one that you can actually see in the Gemara itself, why should it be 8 days and not 7? Because they found one. So just finding that undefiled vessel of oil, that's a miracle. And then it burned for an additional 7 days, so in total we have 8 days. That's it. Okay, thank you. Okay.